through all of that, just the sense of brokenness, that there was the action of humanity. But tonight I wanted to focus on my broken body. The sense that we as human beings are physically broken. And so I wanted to tell you this story that happened to me about 7 years ago, almost exactly 7 years ago. I got what I like to call my old foosball injury. Now, for those of you familiar with foosball, it's not a very physically active sport. I was not a very physically active person, but I was in seminary at the time, and I would often go to play foosball against my friends after class. This would just be how we would relax. Pastor David Seabaugh, actually over at Bethel, he was one of the people that we played foosball all the time. We studied well too. But anyway, so I'm playing there one day after class. It's I believe a Thursday, and I'm sitting there, and the position for foosball, as we were intense foosball players. So we are like, like the ball's going in, and so you're like, okay, and you're moving around, and it's just, you wanted the bragging rights, at least for that hour, right? You go home like, I beat Seabaugh at foosball. Yeah, ooh. You're a real man. So I'm playing, and all of a sudden, I start feeling this thing in my back. Like, oh, that hurts. What is that? I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, I can't play. Somebody else play for me. And it hurt so bad, I sat down, and like people start coming to me, oh, what you need to do is you need to stretch. So I start stretching. They're giving me like all these stretches, like, okay, now touch your toes to your nose and do whatever you can. Oh, but it just hurts. It hurts so bad. I don't like this. I don't like this. Eventually, somebody had the bright idea to call my wife. And Lynn at the time was roughly 5 months pregnant with her Anastasia. So we ended up getting home through kind of a long circuitous route. I get home, and I'm laying on the floor. And I'm not a small man. I'm a little bit bigger than I was then, but I was not small then. And I'm laying there on the floor like this. And my 5-month pregnant wife is sitting there above me. She's looking at me. I took my microphone off for a reason because I'm screaming in pain. And it's just that bad. It's just that bad. And she's looking at me and she's like, I can't pick you up. What do you want me to do for you? I'm like, just shoot me. I can't do anything. This hurts so bad. I felt like I was being stabbed like every 30 seconds in the middle of my back. Ow. It hurt. It hurt. Finally, we called a friend of mine, and he came over. He actually crawled underneath me. We got to the point where I could roll over onto my stomach, and he crawled underneath me and like pushed himself. This was terrible. It was a terrible day. Terrible day. We went to the emergency room where I'm sitting there. I'm in deep, deep pain, and it's 4 hours before I get in there. So this is about 2 in the morning. And they finally give me the shot of Demerol, and like all of a sudden everything's better. Everything is just so much better. But my poor wife is tired at this point. And this is the first time, really truly, that I knew that much pain in my body. But one of the sad things is that as we kind of got on in life, it hasn't actually gotten much better. It's something that stayed with me for most of the last 7 years. We've gone to doctors and they say, yeah, we can do surgery on it. It may help, it may not. And, it costs money to have surgery done. So, do you do it? Do you not do it? Do you live with the pain? How do you manage within your broken body? How do you manage? Reason I bring that up, of course, is that Paul is talking about his broken body. And when he talks about his broken body, he talks about this thorn that was in his flesh. And to me, like, as I was sitting there thinking about it, just feeling like I was being stabbed in the back again and again and again. Wow. that's worse than a thorn in the flesh. Paul talks about this thorn that is something that is in his body. It's a messenger of Satan, he calls it at one point. And then at another point, he says, God, take it away from me. And God says, no. What do you do with your broken body when God says, no, I will leave it be? Paul said that this was happening in him so that he would learn, that part of him would be trained, that his brokenness would serve some greater purpose, that it would take care of perhaps just his ego, that he had thought, how great am I, how well am I doing? And here's all of a sudden this brokenness, this thorn, that he carries around with him wherever he goes. You got that? Anybody else have one of those? Other than me? Yeah, some of you. Nobody's raising their hand, but I know some of you already. Okay, I have one person raising their hand. Good. It is the sense. I mean, afterwards, it was to demonstrate kind of the sadness of this. One of my friends lent me a rolling backpack after this because I couldn't carry my backpack on my shoulders. And so I was like hunched over, and I'm walking like this with this rolling backpack, and I would go, roll, roll. And so I would go through seminary for a whole month. People would walk by me on their way to class and like, hey, Andy, how you doing? Good. What do you think? I mean, seriously, I'm hurting. What do you think? I can't stand up straight. This hurts. I am broken. And it's so obvious. What do you say to people? Paul is experiencing that brokenness. It's so obvious, at least to him. What do you say? What do you say? Do you get to the point that you delight in the weakness that you have been given? Or do you become angry? Because those are both options that we can take when we are broken in body. I've known lots of people who become very angry and bitter because when you live with pain day after day after day after day, it doesn't do nice things to you. You start grinding your teeth, you start just being a miserable person. Paul takes this as an opportunity to say, in the brokenness of my flesh, I am going to delight in God. I'm going to delight in this Jesus who I have prayed to take this away from me. And he said, no. For these things that I have asked for, me, Paul, an important person, have asked for. Jesus said, no, this stays. And Paul says, wow. Wow. Because what happens is that Jesus, in that action with Paul, is reminding Paul of his own brokenness, the day when Jesus was hung upon the cross. Jesus is reminding Paul that God is often displayed not in power, but in times of weakness. So my question actually for you tonight would be, how often do you let your weakness show? Anybody? Like sometimes you'll see me getting up from a chair and I'll be like, but then I'm like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. It hurts. How often do you let your weakness show? How often do we actually take part in the revolutionary thinking of Jesus that says, here, in this weakness that you now have, in the brokenness of body, this weak is now the new strong. How often do we take part in that? Or how often do we hide it? Because it's often shameful. Shameful, what's wrong with you? Go to the doctor. Get that taken care of. We don't discuss our brokenness. We don't share our brokenness of body. And so people have this experience oftentimes a disease or an illness, cancer, and oftentimes they don't know what to do with it, where to go. My broken body it's here, and I can. You hide it for as long as you keep your hair. You're good for as long as you can keep it all together. When Jesus invites us in the revolutionary thinking that weak is indeed the new strong, is to say, look, you get to be part of a brokenness that you can boast about.